time. Time is considered to be the fourth dimension. Time is a constraint being put on us by our Creator, who exists outside of this realm of space and time. Ever since I was a child in Vietnam, ever since the first grade of primary school, I was taught to value time. I was taught to read the analog clock. The clock with the 3 handles, hour, minutes, and seconds. I was taught to read it ever since the first grade. I was taught to behave in accordance to the societal norms, being governed by time. At a certain time every single day, I would wake up. I would get ready. I would eat breakfast, and I would climb onto my parents' motorcycles to be taken to school. And at a certain time, class would start. We would all rise. We would bow our head, saying good morning to our teacher. I was taught these things at a very young age. And I was taught to be disciplined by time. I've had many great teachers throughout the years of my life, but none was more notable than Stephen. I call him Stephen now, but back then it was Mr. Colopy. He was my society and humanity teacher. I can't remember the exact subject that he taught. I just remember it's something to do with humanity, geography, and history. Mr. Colopy was the teacher that I have always remembered. And he was an interesting character. But the thing I guess I remembered him for was how, yes, he might be stern. Some students don't like him because he can come off as being eccentric, and he's known to, discipline us kids by giving us detentions and extra homework and stuff like that. But now that I think back about it, there's a method in his way of teaching. I used to be late to our home class every single morning. Now, the home class is basically the class at the start of, a school day, in which your home teacher would mark off your attendance and, gather all of us kids, telling us the announcements from the school and, send us off on our ways to our first actual class. And Mr. Colopy was my home teacher for a while. And I remember a lot of times that I would, rock up late to class, and so did some other kids. And we would get yard duty. We would have to be, sent out into the schoolyard to pick up rubbish, 5 pieces of rubbish each. And when we come back inside, Mr. Colopy would lecture us. He would tell us some golden tidbits of the day, some interesting. Back then, I didn't think it was interesting. I thought he was just full of himself. This weird man just telling us random weird facts about the world. I didn't really care much about it back then. But this was one thing that Mr. Colopy said that has stuck with me ever since. I remember one day I rocked up late to class, and a few of my other classmates also rocked up late to class. Mr. Colopy made us all stand up at our seat. Meanwhile, all of our classmates get to sit down. And then he would lecture us about the Aboriginal people of Australia. Now, if you know anything about Australian history, you would know that the indigenous people of Australia, the Aboriginals and the Torres Strait Islander people, they have inhabited this great landmass for over 60,000 of years without much advancement in terms of technology or anything like that. They lived off of the land, and they lived in harmony with the land, without much technology, without much progress in society, yet somehow they stuck around for more than 60,000 years, just living and surviving off of whatever it is, the land that God, our mother nature, our creator, whatever you want to put it, has given them. And they lived off of that without any, real science or mathematics or any understanding that we now have today. Mr. Colopy went on a drivel about how, the Aborigines, although primitive, they have learned how to, hunt, predict the weather, and, with their understanding, they were able to survive for more than 60,000 years. And then he segued into, I think he called it Noonga time. Noonga being a tribe of Aboriginal people in Western Australia, I think. I don't remember the exact detail, but he said something like, are you guys operating on, the standard time? Or are you operating on Noonga time? And some of us ask him, what the hell is Noonga time? And then Mr. Colopy explained, well, the concept of time for the Aboriginal people is very different to our concept of time. The Aboriginal people, they don't have any clocks. They don't know jack shit about time. But somehow they can still organize, their lives around the seasons. They know when to wake up by looking at the sun, by looking at the moon, when the water is going to be rising, when it's going to be the best time to, go out fishing and stuff like that. And they don't even have any clock. How did they do it? It's the concept of Noonga time. They just observe nature and just let things happen. And they go with it. And then he talked about our modern concept of time, how we have to adhere to the clock, how the clock is right twice a day, with the hour, the minutes, the second hands. The clock is right at least twice a day. It will pass one revolution at least once per day. And we based our entire life schedule on this concept of time. We have different, goalposts throughout our lives. We need to achieve these things by this certain age. And we need to tick off all of these checklists in order to feel accomplished in life. I think that's what he said. I can't remember exactly, but he said something about, we are not Aboriginal people and we have to adhere to our concept of time. That means you got to wake up at a certain time, get ready and go to school and be here by this time. Then he talked something about preparing us for the workforce. School is a way for you to acclimatize to, the usual 9 to 5 schedule. Now, I do agree that we are not Aboriginal people, but take it from the people who has inherited, this piece of land for over 60,000 years without degrading the land, without, changing nature. They have been able to live harmoniously with nature for over 60,000 years. People look at primitive tribes as if they are, underdeveloped. But I say, what is the point of progressing or developing if whatever that you are doing is working for you? I don't see a point in changing all of this shit up if what you're doing is serving you. So I do think that we can learn something from these people who, although they might be primitive, as you've put it, they don't adhere to our concept of time. They rock up to work late usually. They have the highest mortality rates. They have poorest health literacy, poorest employment rates in our society. Because we have put them in an environment in which they're not going to thrive. You've taken away this ancient knowledge, this culture, this rich culture for 60,000 years, and you put them in this environment and you ask them to, move on with society, while what they've been doing has worked for them for thousands of years, and you've removed all of that. How do you expect them to move on with the time? But anyways, I digress. I think our modern culture, we're too fixated on time. How we're gonna fit everything in a day. How we gotta achieve everything by a certain amount of time. How we gotta graduate, by this age, get married by this age, buy a house by this age. You put all of these constraints on yourself. But what you should really do is just let it happen. And yes, I know we should be aspired to achieve great things in life and to better ourselves. But you shouldn't force it. I think we should let things happen organically. Like what these people are doing. They just live off the land. They don't go out fishing at 7 o'clock every single morning, like us going to work every single morning. Some days, you're going to be a bit more tired. Some days, there are going to be a bit more things happening, just like these people. Sometimes, they got to run to catch that next prey, or maybe it's stormy one day and it's really hot the other day. You got to work with nature. I know it's hard to say this living in this modern society, and I do want to be a part of this society. I'm not saying I'm going to live off-grid and, live in the bush, not going to work anymore, not clock in. I'm forced to clock in at 7, but I was born to sleep in until 11. Anyways, just let things happen, man. You don't have to fit everything into one day. Some people ask me, how do you make the time for all of this to happen in one day? Go to the gym, go to work, go to school. I don't try to fit everything into one day. I just pick one thing and I just focus on it. Pick the most important thing to focus on in one day and just go with it. Sometimes I don't fit everything into one day. Sometimes I fall off my schedule. Doesn't matter. Anyways, hope you guys are doing well. Stay strong. God bless. I love you all. And until next time, I'll speak to you later.